Well, good evening. So glad to have all of you here this evening. It's a little cooler in this room than it is outside. Well, welcome to the President's Circle dinner. Thank you so much for braving the heat and being out here. I know several of you were stuck in traffic, so thank you so much for making the effort to be here. And we've got a wonderful program for you this evening. You'll have the opportunity to hear from two of our wonderful School of Music faculty, Dr. Joel Clift and Mark Spakavets. And we're thrilled to have them here with us this evening. So thank you so much for being here. And let's see, before we go any further, this group, the President's Circle, is so important to Azusa Pacific University. You all provide the scholarship support that we depend on and that our students depend on every single year. You give generously of your time, you give generously of your finances, you pray for our students, you are with us. And we could not do what we do here at Azusa Pacific University without your support. So this time, this evening, and this dinner tonight is to say thank you to all of you who are part of the APU family. And it's important that we take this time at the end of the academic year to pause and to reflect back on all that God has done this past year in the lives of our students, through all of our academic programs, through our student life programs, students who are right now out on missions trips or who are on choir concert tours or all kinds of things that they're doing this summer, internships, those who have recently graduated and are entering the workforce as difference makers in this world. So you all have been a huge part of that, and we thank you. We thank you for your support and your generosity. And now I want to turn it over to Mark and Joel.
So as we prepare to share in a meal, we'd like to offer first a prayer and then a song as a prayer. So I'd like to invite you to join me, please, in prayer. Dear God, we are grateful today. We're grateful for your grace to us. We're grateful for your faithfulness to us. And tonight we celebrate something else that we're grateful for, the support of all of these people here tonight that allows APU to continue making a difference in the world, training Christian workers to go out and make a difference. And we are grateful for that, and most of all, we're grateful for your faithfulness to us. people said, amen. I hate to interrupt your conversation, but I'd like to invite you to join together in worship. We're going to sing a couple songs together. If you're comfortable with it, would you stand, please? I think most of you are done eating by now. Can I invite you to stand as we worship together? Oh Lord, my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout the universe display. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. And when I think that God his Son not sparing sends him to die, I scarce can take it in, that on the cross, my burden gladly bearing, he bled and died to take away my sin. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. When Christ shall come with shout of acclamation and take me home, what joy shall fill my heart. Then I shall bow in humble adoration and there proclaim, my God, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou art, how great thou art. In the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, in the morning when I rise, give me Jesus, give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world, give me Jesus. come to die, oh, and when I come to die, and when I come to die, give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. Give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. But give me Jesus. Please be seated. Sing with us. How deep the Father's love for us, how vast beyond all measure, that He should give His only Son to make a wretch His treasure. How great the pain of searing loss, the Father turns His face away, as wounds which mar the chosen one bring many sons to glory. Behold the man upon a cross, my sin upon His shoulders. Ashamed I hear my mocking voice call out among the scoffers. It was my sin that held Him there until it was accomplished. His dying breath has brought me life. I know that it is finished. I will not boast in anything, no gifts, no power, no wisdom, but I will boast in Jesus Christ, His death and resurrection. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom. Why should I gain from His reward? I cannot give an answer, but this I know with all my heart: His wounds have paid my ransom.
Joel and Merrick, thank you so much. We'll look forward to hearing from you again. Let's thank them one more time. So I think nearly every institution, like Azusa Pacific, have men and women that have stepped up during times of plenty and during times of lean. And APU is no exception. Cliff and Elizabeth Marshburn were involved with APU for many, many years. In fact, if you look at the Marshburn family, I think there's been a Marshburn involved almost since our founding. I think 1912 was the first time a Marshburn served on our board. Cliff and Elizabeth Marshburn were extraordinary people. And we have an award that we established in 1991 for exemplary service. And I actually was blessed. I came back to APU in 1991. And I was blessed to actually, I think, be on the platform when Richard Felix gave the first award, the first Marshburn Award, to Cliff and Elizabeth. And it was a night that I'll never forget. I think that Cliff and Elizabeth both passed later on that year. And it was such a blessed moment. And I think about them and their lives. And one of the stories that I love, our dear brother Hank Boda passed away in September, but he loved to tell this story about Cliff and Elizabeth. And I won't go into detail on it, but it went something like this. I think it was in the 1950s, and APU, at that time Azusa Bible College, was struggling financially, and they had a loan that was due by the bank. The bank called it, and it was actually due at 12 o'clock, and there was a real chance that at 12 o'clock the bank would begin foreclosing on the Bible College. And our president at the time, Cornelius Haggard, called up Cliff at his office. And now Cliff, I understand from Hank, had made a pledge of $2,500. And he called up Cliff and said, Cliff, here's the situation with the Bible College. We're in a bit of a pinch here, and we need to deliver to the bank a check. And Cliff said, how much do you need? And Dr. Haggard paused for a second and said, $25,000. And Cliff, Hank tells the story and says there was a long pause. And Cliff showed up at the bank with Dr. Haggard with a check for $25,000. And as Hank shared the story, Azusa Bible College was saved, and here we are. Well, through the years, there have been really men and women who have come alongside this university and have made a difference. And we actually have 3 families that are recipients of the Marshburn Award, and they're with us tonight. So I'd like to ask them to stand to be recognized. Steve and Susie Perry are sitting right here. Would you guys please stand? Chuck and Thelma White, I think, are back there. And Peggy Campbell is sitting right there. Could you please stand? Let's recognize them. Marshburn recipients for the past couple years. So our recipients tonight really are no different. Cliff and Mary Booth have been friends of the university, I think, since the early 90s. Cliff got involved with our Business Advisory Council, with the Wilden School of Business, and was involved there for a couple years, and then immediately began to hire APU alumni. Thank you so much for doing that, Cliff. Mary Booth has been involved with the Women's Auxiliary, raising literally through the years thousands of dollars of scholarships. Mary, thank you. What I love about them, and they're certainly faithful givers, but what I love about Mary and Cliff is their love of APU. They just support APU. They just show up. So if you were to come to a football game in the fall and watch our team play, you would see Mary and Cliff sitting in the stands cheering on the Cougars. If you were to come to during our basketball season and watch our men and women's teams play basketball, I'll bet they don't miss more than 4 or 5 games a year. They are involved, and they give of their time, talent, and treasure. And so for me and for the university, it is a great honor to present to them the Cliff and Elizabeth Marshburn Award for exemplary service. So would you please welcome them as they come to the stage. I'm going to have you hold this, Cliff, because you'll be responsible.
You know, normally I would say, hello, ladies and gentlemen. But when I come here to this place, I say, hello, my friends. And I really mean that. Pardon me. Hank Boda was mentioned a few minutes ago. Interesting. He and I were both in Rotary together. Not at the same place, but we're in Rotary. And once, while I was president of Rotary in Covina, he was there making up. You know, when you're in Rotary, if you missed a meeting, you had to make up the next weekend or the next week. And I made a comment in presenting the event for the day. Pardon me, I'm not crying. Bad. I just have but afterwards, he said, "You must go to church." I said, "Covina First Baptist." You bet. As a result of that, Hank and I became very good friends. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, he called me. My office, I had an office in Covina. And he says, let's have lunch together. I said, okay. Went up here in Glendora and had lunch. Boy, I have a runny nose. I must apologize for that. But afterwards, he asked me, he said, what do you know about APU? I said, well, the only thing I know about it is that when I was in high school playing ball, I practiced there at the school because they had a good football field out there that we could play on and just go and work out. This was before the season started, so that you'd get ready for the season. I said, but that's really about all I know about it. I know it's a Christian school because, you know, I was at Covina first, and we had some people there that went here and what have you. And but that was it. He said, after lunch, I want to take you over there. That was one of the most thrilling times of my life. I couldn't believe it. I felt the Lord's presence here in a very unusual and special way. As a result of that, Hank and I became very good friends. And as a result of Hank, that's there. Not because of me, because of Hank. He was really quite a guy. And it was so neat. The ball games, like you said, all the sports activities. I love sports, of course. All of the activities at the shows, the plays, and what have you. My wife is a church musician, all the music. I was fortunate enough to have a wonderful company, and our headquarters was in Covina. Every Christmas, and my partner and I were both pretty solid. He was a very solid Christian. I was a Christian. At any rate, every Christmas, we would have about 200 employees come in, and we would have a banquet. The thing that they all remember was the choir from APU on Christmas night, or the night of the party, and it was incredible. And then later, as these people become my friends, loved ones, it's so thrilling. I've been watching this up here on the screen, and I couldn't help but think about almost everything that was said. I really feel. And I thank you all for the wonderful dedication you all do in prayer and love and giving to this wonderful university. Thank you so much.
I don't think we could have packaged it any better. And Cliff and Mary, we love you, and we're honored for your fingerprints on this university. That award in the name of Marshburn really represents you well. Dr. Jennifer Walsh is the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. Jennifer, where are you? I've changed. Come on up. So I was going to tell you about a recent gift that we received from the Darling Foundation and what significant door that opens. I'm going to let Jennifer tell you about that because really the gift, as we know, represents Jennifer's vision. And the nature of why we are going to talk about this subject tonight is because it answers the question, what is our call, what is our reason, and what is our purpose today in being a part of God's redemptive plan for our culture and our society. Dr. Walsh and I have traveled a great deal together. She is one of my closest advisors for how we think about engaging in the public square in ways that represent the Christ-centered nature of this university. She is one of the most gifted leaders in Christian education today. Would you welcome the Dean of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, Dr. Jennifer Walsh?
Let's see if I can get this here without falling down. Well, it's wonderful to be with you all today. John said I had about 2 hours, so I settle in, and no, I'm kidding, really. I have just a few things I thought I'd share with you as we talk a little bit about the significant gift that APU was blessed to receive earlier this spring. But I wanted to just pick up on something that John mentioned, that we are intentional about what we do here at APU. When I became dean 3 years ago of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences, we had a rich tradition already of providing academic programming that was deep and wide and really comprehensive so that students, no matter what field of study they chose, would be well prepared for whatever God had next for them. But as I was talking with my faculty, it realized that we didn't really have a mission statement for our college, and that we wanted to somehow encapsulate what it is that we do that we think makes the difference. And it settled that we had a mission statement that focused on not only programs of academic excellence and fostering a culture of scholarship between faculty and students, but also that we were all committed to making sure that students were well prepared for advanced study, for civic engagement, for vocational success, and really in general, a well-lived life. So along those lines, we thought, as we were launching out the very first academic year that I presided over as dean, what is it that makes our preparation special? And a lot of it has to do with the applied experiential learning that comes in the form of internships. And we know for many students, this makes all the difference in the world, because when they come to us as freshmen, I know it's hard to believe, but they don't always have it figured out. Right? 18-year-olds sometimes don't quite know what it is they want to do or how God has made them or really what their call is and why they've been put here at this particular time and place, and they have to figure it out. And so it's a great privilege and joy for us to walk alongside them. But we know that it doesn't always happen in the classroom. And so having a rich internship experience often provides them with that insight to know what it is maybe they don't like or what they're not equipped to do, but potentially what it is that they're really passionate about. And over the years, then, we found students have found their calling, maybe to go into medicine or nursing. And I have to just brag a little bit about my faculty, because we have a national or an acceptance rate for medical school that's twice the national average, because they do this really, really well. But whether it's medicine or ministry, nursing, or law, we found that for many students, the pathway is very well established. But on occasion, going back to when I was full-time in the classroom, I was a political scientist and I taught government classes and pre-law classes. And I had students come to me and say, I think I'm called to run for office. Or I think I'd like to work in government, but I'm just not sure what that looks like. We didn't have a well-defined path to put them on. And so that started our thinking. What would that look like if we were to help students in a more tangible, direct way to figure out if this was something that they were meant to do? And so that really prompted an ongoing discussion about what we might do to prepare students. But along the way, our alums still kind of figured it out on their own. And I wanted to share a couple of success stories that even though they didn't have a defined path just yet, they took what they learned in the classroom and they put it into good use with a little bit of guidance along the way. One of the first alums that I wanted to share with you, it was recently in the news. Roy Wright is a deputy director at the Federal Emergency Management Association, or agency, now that we often refer to as FEMA. And he graduated in 1996 with a degree in political science and then went to Washington because he felt called to make a difference. While he was there, he was encouraged to sign up for a Master's of Public Administration program, which he did there in Washington, D.C. He graduated from George Washington University in 1998 and secured an entry-level position in the federal government. Over the years, he's worked his way up to now where he is in charge of a hundreds of millions of dollar budget every year and is solely responsible in many ways for making sure that the National Flood Insurance Program is well executed. I've had long conversations with Roy over the last 2 years, and what I've learned about him is that the reason why he went into government is because he wanted to make a difference in the everyday lives of Americans. And what he's found in his current job is that when people are at their worst, right, when disaster hits, when people have lost everything because of flood or fire or some other natural disaster, he recognizes that his agency is in a position to do good and to help out right away. And he's taken that passion and he's turned it back into congressional action. He first received his position shortly after Hurricane Sandy, and he has some great stories about testifying before the Senate because they were concerned that people weren't getting the aid fast enough. And even though it wasn't during his time that aid package was distributed, he realized how important it was to make that line of communication between Congress and the agency much better than what it had been before. So he's doing good work, that he's taking the learning he had at APU and he's putting it into practice to help others. We now have a Washington, D.C. alumni chapter, because I found out as I was traveling back there, we have nearly 45, 50 alums who are in some level of government agencies over the years. One alum I just met in November. Her name's Jamie Vickery. She also was a political science grad. There's probably a theme here, I'm just going to warn you. She also went to Washington, D.C., first as part of her APU education. We participate in what's called the Best Semester Program, where students go away for a semester and they take classes and they also do internships in Washington. And this is organized by the CCCU, the Coalition of Christian Colleges and Universities. Well, Jamie got the bug, the Washington bug, while she was there. And so as soon as she graduated, she moved to Washington, D.C., and began working for a representative from Illinois. Later, she moved over to Steve Horn's office. He's a Republican from California who has now been long retired, but some of you might remember the name. And while she was there, she earned a public policy degree from Georgetown along the way. Well, after Horn retired, she decided that she was going to take her insight and knowledge about how Congress works and put it to good use by working as a lobbyist for healthcare organizations, first with the National Cancer Society and later with an organization called HMS Holdings. Just last May, so I met her right after she secured this appointment, she was tapped by the March of Dimes to be their director for federal affairs. And she's now the chief lobbyist for the March of Dimes to secure federal funding to help the most vulnerable in society, pregnant women, infants, children, and families. In fact, her very first assignment for the March of Dimes from last year was to talk to Congress about increased funding for Zika research, because that was the big story. If you remember last summer, we had the Zika virus making headlines because of the damage it was doing to pregnant women and infants. And that was her first job, is to take that insight from Congress that she learned as an undergrad and later as an alum and put it into good use for the least of those in society. Lastly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention our newest alum, Tess Schirkenbach. Tess just graduated. In fact, she's currently on tour with Bel Canto in Argentina. Otherwise, I would bring her here because once you know Tess, you love Tess. She's amazing, and her passion to help others in the area of public service. But like most students, she didn't discover that until halfway through her undergraduate career. She took a class in public policy as a political science major and a minor in humanities and decided that she wanted to jump into public service right away. She didn't want to wait until after she was graduated. So she interned with the Glendora City Council, which for those of you who know is just the town next door. And during that internship, she decided that she wanted to examine a new public-private partnership that had emerged. So she applied for research funding for the American Enterprise Institute in Washington, D.C., which is a renowned think tank that studies public policy issues, and asked them for funding so that she could examine this more fully. And in the course of the last semester, she looked at how public monies could be channeled into nonprofit private organizations to solve our most pressing problems. Her study on homelessness and how private organizations could use public dollars became a benchmark of in a linchpin of where she would like to go. This was shared with the Glendora City Council, and it's inspired her to seek a fellowship in Sacramento now that she's graduated. There's a program called the Capital Fellows Program that we've been successful in placing students in the last several years, but it's highly competitive. Over 10,000 applicants are received each year, and less than 100 are chosen. Tess applied for this even though the odds were against her, and right during finals week, which was not convenient for her, but she was interviewed by both the Assembly and the State Senate for this position. We heard just yesterday she was accepted to both. So I know, I haven't talked to her firsthand, I heard it through her faculty mentor. She's decided to accept the State Senate Fellows position, and she'll start that in August. So we're really excited for Tess. But these alumni stories inspired us to take our dreams of what might happen and put it into action, because we realized the time was right now to craft this pathway for students who felt God's call to go into public service. Because we all know, all it takes is turning on the news or looking at the internet to know we need this now more than ever. But the question really was part of the conversation we had, do we do something in Washington, or do we do something here at home? And I have to be honest, Washington's a fun place. It's great. I love to visit. We have a lot of alums who are working there in the city. But there's a lot of activity already happening in Washington, and there's not a whole lot going on here at home. So when we started thinking about how could we best place students in a position where they could become difference makers within public agencies, our thoughts and our conversation turned more to Sacramento than it did to Washington, D.C. In part, Washington has a strong presence among Christian college students. We have programs that are funded by the CCCU. Other schools, like Biola, for example, they send students there on a regular basis to spend time and live in the nation's capital. But no one is in Sacramento. And I mean that literally. As we've traveled in the last year, engaging in conversations with lawmakers, we've realized that not a single Christian college is present and active in Sacramento. And this creates a huge opportunity for us. We realize that as we are looking at the future, there's definitely a part of us that's looking eastward to Washington, but more important for us, we have to look north to Sacramento. And there's a couple reasons why. In addition to having basically a vacuum where there's no dedicated Christian college presence there, we also realize that for many lawmakers today, they're taking action here in their home state, in their home communities. The more dysfunctional Washington gets, the more lawmakers in Sacramento have said, and we've heard it personally, they're ready to take action on their own. And that means if we're not present, if we're not there in the capital of the nation's largest state, we're going to miss out on the conversation and miss out on the ability to influence in a godly way for the good of all. So we need to be at the table when those conversations are happening. Our students need to be in those offices in the state capitol building and in the executive branch and in the public agencies that direct now $360 billion of public spending each and every year. We have the nation's largest economy. In fact, we have one of the world's largest economy. California's economy is the 6th largest in the world. We dwarf the United Kingdom and France. And that creates huge opportunities for our students who go to work in regulatory agencies, business organizations, as well as traditional public agencies. If they're involved, if in those institutions, embedded, they have a profound opportunity to transform them from the inside out. I have to say, though, that the thought of putting students in Sacramento, where there's no other Christian college present, is a little bit daunting. And there's a tendency sometimes for us to look at a challenge like that and think, you know what, let's just stay at home and hunker down and wait for Jesus to come because, it's going to be tough. But I think there's a great scripture that I have to remind myself and refresh my memory a little bit about that talks about this exact situation. So Jeremiah 29, 7 and 8. Most of you are familiar with Jeremiah 29, 11. In fact, it's emblazoned on the APU license plates, right? Where God says, I have a plan for you, and it's a good plan to give you a future and a hope. But if we back up a few verses, we see the condition that's attached to that promise. And that is that first we seek the peace and prosperity of the city. Just like the nation of Israel, we are, in a sense, find ourselves in a post-Christian world, living in a land of exile. But God doesn't give us permission to hide. He says, I want you to seek the peace and prosperity of the land I've given you, and I want you to pray to me for it. And trust me, this past year, we've done an awful lot of praying. We've spent more time, and many of you were prayer partners with us in the past year as we dealt with various legislative challenges. We prayed an awful lot for Sacramento. We prayed for God to give our lawmakers discernment, to grant us favor, and to protect us. And because He has, we now continue to enjoy peace and prosperity. But we think that prayer is just the first part. Seeking peace and prosperity means that it's time for us to roll up our sleeves and go to work. And it's time to put our students, our difference makers, in the nation's largest capital in order to have them transform those institutions from inside out. It is the largest mission field we could ever hope for, and it's right here in our backyard. We're so excited that tonight we get to announce that to facilitate this dream, to put our students in Sacramento, we've been given a startup grant by the Darling Foundation in the tune of $750,000 to create a new Center for Public Affairs that will be housed in Sacramento, right there across from the state's capital. This startup funds will really accomplish three things. It will allow us to hire a faculty member who will be responsible for identifying internships, teaching classes for undergraduates on public administration and public policy, and starting a new graduate program in Masters of Public Administration, which will be the first CCCU program of its kind. We think this will not only benefit our undergraduate students who can have the opportunity to travel to a semester away program in Sacramento to do work in the nation's capital, whether it's in the legislative branch, the executive branch, the judicial branch, or state agencies. But it will give them the advanced education and training they'll need to become leaders within those institutions. We know that if we do that, and we're able to secure additional funding to build out pieces that would provide for ongoing programmatic development, that our students, our alumni, will be the best ambassadors we could ever hope for. So we're really excited to start this journey. I covet your prayers because it's a daunting task. It's the one big thing on my summer to-do list is to figure out how we get our arms around this and launch this thing. But I couldn't be more thrilled and so grateful, not only to the Darlings, but to many of you in the room who have been a part of this journey as well. So thanks for your time, and I'm really glad to have the opportunity to share with you, and I'm going to turn it back over to John.
So that's pretty amazing, huh? Put the Jeremiah 29, 7 and 8 up again. This verse is given to God's people in exile, right? We often forget that. And by the way, it's a great verse. So when we get to, for I know the plans I have for you, plans I have to prosper, and those words are being spoken by God's prophet to God's people in exile. Isn't it a great picture for Christ followers? In some ways, we can view ourselves in exile, planted where God has placed us, and that we seek the prosperity of the city that He has placed us in while we are in exile. Look, we had a challenging year. There was a story in Sacramento, a really powerful story, about faith-based institutions like Azusa Pacific that really wasn't true to the character and nature of who God has called us to be, nor of the impact we have in this state. We have the 7th largest education department in the state of California, public and private. We have the 4th largest transfer population of students from community colleges to APU of privates in the state of California. We have nearly 1,800 students enrolled in the nursing programs at all levels at the university. But a different story was being told. And with Jennifer's vision and the generosity of the Darling Foundation, we are going to seek the prosperity of a supermajority, progressive state that really needs the presence of a Christ-centered university speaking into the public square in Sacramento. Jennifer and I sat in the Sacramento airport a number of times because if you have the last Southwest flight out, it often is, I should say if you have the second to last, it's often canceled, and you're fortunate to get the next hour and a half waiting for the last flight. We're sitting there, and I remember a conversation, and I wrote it down and found it in my journal, and it was something like this. We see a desperate need to prepare men and women to engage politics, public life, and the public square from a Christian perspective. That is neither Republican nor Democrat, by the way. That says, living in exile, what would Jesus have for us? How would it look for us to be in Sacramento and speaking into policy that would be good for the citizens of Sacramento from a Christian worldview? What would it mean for men and women trained at APU and faculty doing scholarship with them in Sacramento? I believe this may be one of the great calls of APU in this decade. I believe this may be one of the great calls of APU in this decade. That we would stand in the middle ground where God has planted us. And that we would take our mission lived out in our alum, our students and our faculty, and as Christ followers have done for 2,000 years, we would live as light and salt and make a difference. So I was trying to think of the best way to thank you, because we wouldn't be here at all without you. On your tables is this card. Pull that up, will you? It is not an offering envelope. You've already given. Don't worry about shaky hands or anything. On the inside of that are pictures of graduates in the undergrad or graduate programs. 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, Peggy Campbell, our board chair, and I shook the hands of about 1,700 graduates. Can you imagine that? Ruth Prevette, Dr. Haggard's daughter, is here tonight. Ruth, I wonder what your dad would think about 1,700 graduates on a... So we're going to send home with you. That box on your table are not chocolates. No, go really open it. And inside of what Jennifer did in showing you the pictures of students who have graduated, alum now who are difference makers, we've given you their stories, some of them. These are graduates from 2 weeks ago, and we're giving you their narrative. And here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to pray for them in whatever the habit of your spiritual exercise is, because you're taking their stories now. It's better than chocolate. And I want to encourage you to look at the faces of the men and women, the undergrad, master's, and doctoral students who you support generously with your giving. And I want you to pray for how God will use them. I want you to pray for how God will use them. When we start the academic year, we have some traditions that we have begun. One of those traditions started a number of years ago is we had this huge wrought iron gate made, and we put the university seal on the front of it, and we have all freshmen and new students on the welcome weekend here. We take it over to the West Campus, and we set up in front of the Felix Event Center, and they walk through that gate. Isn't that a great-looking gate? I mean, the thing is huge. It's probably nearly 20 feet tall. It's really big. We open it up. They walk through it. We commission them as current students. Their parents who are visiting with them that week take them back later and put them in front of it and take their picture. And we say this to them. We are going to begin this journey with the end in mind. We are going to begin this journey with the end in mind. And the next time you will walk through this gate is at graduation. 2 weeks ago, in the stadium, we set up that gate. And in the morning, 700 master's and doctoral students walked through that gate. And in the evening, 1,100 undergraduate students marched through that gate, marking both a beginning and an ending. Like you are marking with us. The other thing we do when they come as freshmen is we do a candela. And we put, I don't know, whatever the entry class is, say 1,600 or 1,700, and all of their parents and a lot of grandparents and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters, and put them on the field, and we light the candela. We repeat that the weekend that they graduate, the night before they walk through the stadium. This is the one from 2 Fridays ago. It's the largest. We had almost 4,000 people on that grass field over on West Campus. And students and parents stand up. The gate is beginning the journey with the end in mind. The candela is that we call them to be salt and light. That passage from Matthew 5 where Jesus is speaking, and he says, you're a city on a hill, and your light cannot be hid. And we say to them what Jennifer pointed out in the stories of our students, and they're on the cards that you're taking home, that we want you, we need you, we desperately desire for you to be salt and light in the world today. So, you're going to do a candela with me tonight. The fire marshal says we can't use real candles. On your table, however, are battery-operated candles. And it gets better. The on-off switch is to turn this little thing on the bottom to the right, you know, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. And it'll look like this. So would you pass those candles around? Corbin, is yours working? Yeah, well, who knows? We probably should have had our graduates test these. And Sydney is in the back working the lights. Sydney, can you kill the lights? Oh, wait. We were going to wait. Can you stand? So, would you stand, please? And you're going to have to hold these where they can be seen. And now, Sydney, would you kill the lights? So, our musicians tonight have chosen Peggy Campbell's favorite hymn. It's Be Thou My Vision. And what I would like is for you to assume the same challenge of that people in exile to seek the health of the city God has planted them and to answer the call to be the light where God has placed you.
my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thoughts by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. High King of heaven, your victories won. May I reach heaven's joys, O bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of all.
If we were on the field, you'd be holding a real candle in that round paper that keeps the hot wax off your hand, would say, be a difference maker. And then I would say to you as students and parents before you went back to the dorms or got in your car and went home, I'd say, pin that paper up, be a difference maker. And if it was at the beginning of the academic year, we'd say, put it in your dorm room. If it was at graduation, we'd say, go put it in your new apartment. So you don't get to take the candles home. But that thing that's not a box of chocolates, you take that home. And I would be deeply grateful if you would pin the story of one of those students and remember they've been called to be a difference maker. We're going to do a little more worship, and then we'll send you on your way. Why don't you sit down, and thank you.
You'd like to share a song that's about being a difference maker wherever you happen to be planted. It also happens to be about a conversation with a tree. So, hope you enjoy it. I saw a tree by the riverside one day as I walked along, straight as an arrow and pointing to the sky, growing tall and strong. How do you grow so straight and tall? I said to the riverside tree. And this is the song that my tree friend sang to me. I've got roots growing down to the waters, And I've got leaves growing up to the sunshine, and the fruit that I bear is a sign of the life in me. I am shade from the hot summer sundown, and I am nest for the birds of the heavens. I'm becoming what the maker of trees has meant me to be. A strong young tree. I saw a tree in the winter time when snow lay on the ground, straight as an arrow and pointing to the sky, and winter winds were blowing all around. How do you grow so straight and tall? I said to the wintertime tree, and this is the song that my tree friends sang to me. I've got roots growing down to the waters. I've got leaves growing up to the sunshine, and the fruit that I bear is a sign of the life in me. I am shade from the hot summer sundown. I am nest for the birds of the heavens. I'm becoming what the maker of trees has meant me to be. A strong young tree. I saw a tree in the city streets, could be Sacramento, where buildings blocked the sun. Green and lovely, I could tell it gave joy to everyone. Oh, how do you grow so straight and tall? I said to the downtown tree. And this is the song that my tree friends sang to me. I've got roots growing down to the waters. I've got leaves growing up to the sunshine, and the fruit that I bear is a sign of the life in me. I am shade from the hot summer sundown. I am nest for the birds of the heavens. I'm becoming what the maker of trees has meant me to be. A strong young tree. A strong young tree. A strong young tree. In closing, would you stand and please, I know when we sang Great Is Thy Faithfulness at the beginning, I went back to the table and they said, you know, we could have sung that with you. I would love for you to join me in singing that now. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness, O God my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever wilt be. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see.
you so much for being a part of tonight, a special evening. I want to thank especially Joel and Merrick. Thank you so much for leading us in worship. For our staff and our servers, those were all APU students. Just wanted you to know our chefs prepared that meal as well. I want to thank them. Hopefully they'll hear us. And Jennifer, thank you for your presentation. John, and especially Cliff and Mary, bless you guys. We love you. So yeah, let's thank them one more time. I wanted you to know that Jennifer wrote a white paper, and as you leave, this is what you might want to look for. Heading out that door to the northwest, you'll find them sitting there on a stand, so you're welcome to take one of those. So I thought a really cool way to close our evening in prayer was to read the last verse of Great Is Thy Faithfulness. I mean, who doesn't love that song? That song just moves all of us. So let me read it to you. Pardon for sin and a peace that endureth, thy own dear presence to cheer and to guide, strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow, blessings all mine, 10,000 beside. Amen? Amen. Have a great night. Thank you so much for coming.